And welcome into the Change Up on WVSSAC Sports. Joined beside me on my right here is Matt Digby. Welcome.
Welcome. Good to be back. Countdown continues. Not long to go until high school football. Not long to go until college football.
And of course, we got Tom Bill here. Long night for you, bud?
Long night. I mean, it's a tough one for my Red Sox, but we're not going to get into that now. People don't want to hear about that game.
Yeah, a little bit later. Maybe we'll hit up the Ortiz injury if we can. But
X-rays were negative.
He's going to make it through this first session here with us. Thanks for joining us. You can check us out on all the social media platforms at WVSSAC Sports on Facebook and Twitter. And we're very excited for our first guest here this morning is Wayne Ryan, the Assistant Executive Director of the WVSSAC. Wayne, that's a mouthful of a title there, bud.
It's a big title. I'm not sure what to say about that, except that's what they gave me, so I have to work with it.
How's it been going this first few months on the job here? And of course, you have a long history in the state, being a big time involved in high school sport. How's it going first few months on the job?
Well, it's went really well. Mr. Dolan and the staff here, Kelly Geddes, Greg Reed, Bill Gillespie. It's been a really good transition. They've all been extremely helpful. I have learned a lot, and I wasn't blind coming in, but there were many things that I wasn't aware of. So I'm learning the job as we speak, and every day I realized yesterday I didn't know quite enough. So every day is a chance to learn and get better as I grow into the position. It's been great to get out on the road for the clinic tour and visit all the schools and meet a lot of people, and so it's been an exciting time.
And a lot of those names you mentioned, Bernie Dolan, Bill Gillespie, they're also relatively new, joining the WVSSAC in their capacities within the calendar year. How does that kind of impact the atmosphere that is kind of a changing of the guard type feeling right now?
Well, that's exactly what it is. I mean, Kelly Geddes has been in the office for 14 years, so she's the most experienced person in the office right now. The rest of us, like you say, we're new within the past year, but it's been a great transition from the previous staff to this staff, and they're still available to us and very helpful. So when we have issues or questions or need to know how something was handled in the past, they're a text or phone call away, and they've worked with us really great as we've made that transition. And we've made a few changes already and some tweaks, and we'll continue to do that. And eventually we'll figure out some things that we want to do differently as a staff. But like I say, the transition's been very helpful from the previous group.
So Wayne, high school football season right around the corner. What are some of the things on your guys' docket right now as far as rule changes and points of emphasis?
Well, I'm in charge of football, so I've had to learn a lot quickly. But as we've made a clinic tour, I think there's four big things that people might be interested to know. These are four big points I've had to hit upon. One is coaches' education. We're making all coaches, head coaches and assistants, take the sudden cardiac arrest education course from NFHS Learn. They also have to take the heat illness prevention course, and as always, they have to take the concussion course. And it used to just be the head coach, but all coaches now have to be trained and educated on those three things, because all three of those are safety concerns: sudden cardiac arrest, heat illness, which is the leading cause of preventable death by our high school athletes, and then concussions, as you know, are always in the spotlight as we work to make the game safer and be more aware and educated about those. So that's the education part. And then also on concussions, the return to play protocol has changed in that if you get a concussion, a confirmed concussion, you're going to be out a minimum of 6 days, because the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee recommended, and the board accepted a proposal from the National Federation that each progression in your return to play protocol for a concussion must take a 24-hour period. So you have your no activity progression, but then you have a 24-hour period, and then you can do the light aerobic exercise, and then you can do sports specific, then you can do non-contact training drills, and you can do full practice. But all those have to have a 24-hour waiting period. You've got to pass that progression with no symptoms of a concussion before you can move on to the next. So the return-to-play protocol for concussions has changed tremendously for the safety and benefit of the student-athlete. And then the practice guidelines have changed also from the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. Teams are only allowed to practice 3 hours. There's a 3-hour limit on your practice time, and that's the 3-hour window that includes physical activity. And we define physical activity by three things: conditioning, working in the weight room, or on-field practice. I mean, if you think about those, are physical. It doesn't include a walkthrough, a skull session, video, or anything like that. But the physical part of practice, the on-field practice, the work in the weight room, and conditioning has to be in a 3-hour window. And in situations where they were allowed to do 2-a-days, you could not do them any longer on consecutive days. And if you did 2-a-days, they had to have a 3-hour break in between. And again, that all came from the Sports Medicine Advisory. So we've had to put that information out, and coaches have had to change and adapt to how they do things this fall. And then the last thing that the fans will see this year is football adopted a game shortening rule that will take effect in the fourth quarter. If a team is ahead by 35 points, the clock will continue to run. At the beginning of that fourth quarter, if there's a 35-point lead, or any time during the fourth quarter, if the lead becomes 35 points, the rule will go into effect, and the clock will run continuously, with a few exceptions that the officials and coaches have been trained about. It'll still stop on change of possession, but it won't stop when the ball just goes out of bounds. It won't stop to move the down markers, things like that. So we're going to run the clock and shorten the game if it's, I guess you could refer to it as if it's a blowout at that point. And so that will be something that will be new to football fans this fall.
Now, this the 6 days with the concussion protocol, pretty much it makes them eligible for that next game, right? If they go through all the protocol, make it the 24 hours, make it through a full practice, that leaves the window.
If they got a concussion on Friday night, which is everybody's big measuring point, of course, at middle school and JV games, the math would be different. But if you got a concussion on Friday night, your very best scenario is you could be cleared Thursday after practice or Friday morning. So in some scenarios, a kid may be able to play if he's got a concussion on Friday night, but in most they will not, because at any point of those progressions, if you have any symptoms from your concussion, you have to regress a progression and wait 24 hours. Anybody that's ever had a concussion knows that you can't even stand the light for a couple days. And, there are issues there. So it will be rare that a kid gets a concussion on Friday and is cleared by the next Friday, but in the best case scenario, that could happen.
Did they consider just making that next game an automatic disqualification, or just make them sit out that next game?
Not really, because the concussion protocol addresses all sports. So obviously it's not just about Friday nights.
Right.
And so, there are different sports that play every day of the week. So really it's just a concussion protocol for any athlete that receives a concussion in any sport.
Okay.
And then also one of the other things you mentioned, game shortening rule in football. What was kind of the mentality amongst the executive board, among the coaches and athletic directors in the past? Because that's always a very interesting topic whenever it gets brought up.
Well, it is. And obviously a lot of people are in favor of it. A few people say, well, but I can't get my subs in the game, and they deserve to play. But it has been discussed for several years in the Football Coaches Committee. Each sport has a coaches committee that comes and meets at the SSAC office, and they make recommendations. Those recommendations are then taken to the board of directors, and anything has to be approved by the board of directors. And so after several years of discussion and looking at what other states do, the Football Coaches Committee felt this was a pretty good proposal for a game shortening rule. In a lot of sports it's called a mercy rule, but in football it's just called game shortening. And so I think overall it will serve its purpose well. I mean, a lot of games it won't come into play, but the games that are blowouts, but listen, usually if you're down that much, you really want to get it over and get nobody hurt and move on. And if you've got the win in hand, just throw the other kids in and let them play.
So is the rule primarily safety-based? Is that what you guys are going for first and foremost?
Well, I think every rule we make, it has safety in mind, because obviously the emphasis nationwide in athletics is on safety. So it's certainly a factor. But there's also a sportsmanship realm there, and just avoid controversy and issues. When the score is lopsided, one way or the other, people can feel dissatisfied. So I think this will also probably calm that just a little bit.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of new to this. I haven't seen high school football yet in West Virginia, but just from looking at a lot of the scores last year, it seemed like there were a lot of blowouts from team to team. I think another factor in that might be kind of the reclassification efforts. Right now, that cycle's set at 4 years. Is that something that you guys are comfortable with, or are you looking at changing that down the line?
Well, that's a good question. because it used to be in 2-year cycles, but it's been on 4-year cycles for about 16 years now. And understand that football is all done in even years. Every contract, the majority of contracts, are 2-year contracts. So if you did the schedule and you reclassified every 2 years, then that would really impact your ability to know who to schedule in your classification and what you need to do for your school if you're reclassifying every 2 years and you're signing 2-year contracts in football. So basically, the 4-year cycle for classifications is actually driven by the sport of football because you want to have at least 4 years so you can establish your schedule and get your contracts and renew your contracts and not always be trying to figure out who you can play when every other year. So the 4-year cycle allows football teams, well, because that is the most difficult sport to schedule because you can want to play and still not be able to work the weeks out. But given a 4-year cycle, it works better for the schools.
Yeah, and for the several teams that we have 4 in our area that are going to be in different classes this year, Oak Hill and Shady Spring are both in AA. Summers County and Mountain View are both in Single A. I know you have made some comments in the past about Summers County wanting to be in Class Single A, and now that they're back, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think if you look closely, we increased the number of schools in Class A. Class A became much more competitive when some double A's dropped down. The same thing is in double A. A lot of your smaller triple A's dropped down to double. A lot of your so that's going to make double A extremely competitive all the way through. You have fewer schools in triple A, but you have lessened the ratio between the difference in school populations. We have some really large schools. We had schools down to 900 kids still in AAA. So we've really reduced that parity some, and I think it's going to make a really good tournament, really good competitive environment and playoff system. We'll be anxious to see how it does work.
And then so across the other sports, do you see that kind of competitiveness and parity extending to the other sports, or could this potentially create some issues because you're focusing on it from a football perspective and not necessarily looking at all sports?
Well, no, I don't think it will. Realize football is a different sport in this round. Number one, everybody wants to win. But number two, you need to have a positive experience. And the third thing to remember is football is a physical game. And when you're playing against a school that has more players, and they are able to only let those players play one way, and you're playing your kids and they have to go both ways, the risk of injury is much greater. So if we can make that parity of school sizes better, then we make the game safer and more equitable, and we hope that we've done that. And it really goes for all sports, and as far as competitive equity goes, we think all classifications in all sports is going to be exciting tournaments.
The school year's getting ready to start here. Wayne, what are you excited about just personally? Is it football coming up? Is there a team out there that sticks out to you? What's getting you excited up there in Parkersburg?
Well, I tell you what I'm excited about. First of all, I love football and love to watch football, and I'm excited that I get to go to different games every week. And I'm going to get to see a lot of teams in a lot of places. Of course, we have to go out and observe officials. But I'm going to get to see a lot of teams play, and I'm going to get to see some of these rivalries I've always heard about, like Parkersburg South, Williamstown, Wheeling Central. I'm going to get to some of these games. Of course, I'll get to come back to Southern West Virginia and get to watch some of those teams play. So I'm just excited that every Friday night I get to be at a high school football game, and that's my job. So that's a pretty good job.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. How often also your son Matt, he graduated this past spring from Summers County High School. He's now at the University of Charleston. How much do you anticipate following him heading down to Laidley on Saturdays?
Well, I don't know this for sure at this time, but I would anticipate that Matt would be redshirted because most freshmen at UC are. UC's got an outstanding football program. They're one of the only 2 schools last year that made the playoffs in the conference, and I know they've got a lot of kids back and had a lot of D1 transfers, so they should be loaded. So I would expect that most of the freshmen at UC, true freshmen, are going to be redshirted. So I want to follow UC's program and become a little bit more knowledgeable about it, catch some big games, but I don't think that it'll be trying to be there every Saturday. But if Matt's on the field, I'll do my best to be there when the job will allow me.
Wayne, around here, Matt was on our top plays in high school so many times we accused Digby of having a man crush on him.
Well,
I think myself and Larry are both guilty on that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Matt was a special athlete. My son or not. I mean, not very many kids are all state 3 sports, and He earned his recognition in high school, but now he's started over as low man on the totem pole at a complete different level, and that will be a tough challenge for him and every other kid coming in at that level. That's why the turnover is so great. So.
No, we definitely enjoyed watching him down here in the southern part of the state, and wish him the best of luck. Can't wait to see him down at UC if he does get redshirted, or maybe next year we'll get to see him more. Hey, man, well, just thanks for joining us. We hope you have a great year. New position up there. Take care and give us a shout halfway through the season. Let us know how it's going.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Wayne.
Thanks, Wayne.
All right, that was Wayne Ryan, Assistant Executive Director of the WVSSAC, joining us here. Just a good starting point for the football season to kind of get the rules in order, kind of getting us the jumping off point, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's good to get that perspective kind of from the top, see what, we've talked to some of these coaches now and get a sense of what they're focusing on specifically with their teams, but just to kind of see what the state of West Virginia football looks like heading to the season, some of the things that they're focusing on specifically safety-wise, with the sudden cardiac arrest course, the heat illness course, concussion course that these coaches all have to go through. It's very clear that the administration involved with West Virginia football is focused on making this game as safe as possible.
Yeah, and the other thing that stuck out to me was what we were talking about, the reclassification. I've been able to see, Oak Hill, I was able to get out to their football practice earlier this week. I was at Shady Springs practice. They're excited about, being in Class AA, a new challenge. They feel they're going to be more competitive because against AAA competition, they had a lot of struggles for several years now. When you take a look at Shady Spring, it wasn't that long ago they made the state semifinals in Class AA. So Vince Culicerto has been a firm believer in Shady Spring, being able to compete in Class AA. So I think that's going to help them, and I'm sure also for Summers County and Mountain View in Class A.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, especially with Summers County losing a player like Matt Ryan, that definitely helps when they can move down to A and hopefully still be competitive.
Yeah, I like you said, Oak Hill's going to, I think, be one of those schools that really sees the biggest difference going to Class AA, especially in basketball. I really look forward to Oak Hill doing something in basketball this year, maybe in AA, but that's still a ways down the road, and so are a lot of other things that we got going on here today. You guys go bring it home for us. What are you looking forward to coming up in the show?
Coming up later in the show, I'll have a special tribute to John Saunders. You might remember the legendary sports broadcasting personality. He passed away on Wednesday at the age of 61. It was kind of a shocker. No one really expected anything like this. It's a very sad week for sportscasters throughout the country. He definitely was one of the pioneers, so to speak, of the industry, and I'll definitely have more words to say about him coming up later.
And maybe we'll talk some Olympics, something catching your eye.
Well, I think it's catching everyone's eye. Mr. Michael Phelps at it again. Who would have thought at the age of 31 he'd still be bringing in the gold medals like he is? So certainly an amazing accomplishment for Phelps, and just more of what we've seen throughout his career, so we'll get into that.
All right, guys, well, you're listening to The Change Up on WVSSAC Sports. Welcome into the Change Up on WVSSAC Sports. You can check us out on Facebook and Twitter at WVSSAC Sports. And make sure you download our podcast and share it with your friends. Boy, it's an exciting time. Olympics really kind of took me by surprise, Matt. I didn't think I'd be too interested in it, but Phelps really kind of got it going. Well, actually, Mountaineers got it going. Bring home the first gold.
Talk about the very first gold medal of the Olympics. Ginny Thrasher from Springfield, Virginia, winning the women's 10-meter air rifle, and then only a couple of days later, as a matter of fact, the men's 10-meter air rifle, former mountaineer Nico Campriani, representing Italy in Rio de Janeiro, he won the gold medal. So how about that? WVU sweeping two separate events in shooting.
But really, the story's been Michael Phelps dominating.
Yeah, absolutely. We've never seen an Olympian like Michael Phelps. I think was he up to 21 gold medals now?
That sounds
and
right to me.
So he's already got 3 in this Olympics. It's absolutely insane to see him do this at the age of 31. This is his, fifth Olympics? We had 2000 in Sydney, 2004 in Athens, 2008 in Beijing, 2012 in London, and now here in Rio. He's been doing this since he was 15 years old, and even winning medals back then. I believe he got a bronze back in Sydney before he started his run to just one of the most dominant Olympians of all time, probably the most dominant Olympian of all time. I mean, he has more gold medals than many countries do in their entire history, and he's just seems very refocused to training and just getting back to what his level was back in 2008 this time around.
And I think it's great that we have a guy like Phelps to look up to in the Olympics, because you take a look at the other great individual Olympians, a lot of Soviet gymnasts, a lot of swimmers from past generations, but that was well before our time. Now that we finally have
Did you say Soviet gymnasts were the greatest, man?
Before Michael Phelps, yeah, there were a couple, both on the men and
They
the
were on
women.
some strong supplement
Damn
routines.
steroids.
Very strong supplement programs for those Soviets.
Yeah, they're calling each other out this time. They're on damn roids, Matt.
They are, but
What do you mean they are? Are you supporting roids?
I did not say that. I am not saying that at all. But
Well, it looks like it's still going on too over there.
Exactly.
Russia's still got some problems with their doping policy.
What I am saying though is
Matt Digby.
I think it's great that we, as our generation right now, get to look at Phelps, and especially the way he's performed this year in Rio, because he didn't perform that great in London, and we remember hearing that London was going to be his last Olympics. I think because of his less than stellar performance in England 4 years ago, I think he was looking at Rio as kind of a redemption, and he's certainly done that to this point. He does have one more race coming up on Thursday night, the 200 individual medley. He and Ryan Lochte going to go at it in duel. I fully expect the Americans to take gold and silver.
Are you surprised that Phelps has so much success? Not really success in the pool or in the Olympics, but outside, that he's still a polarizing character, because he's been through controversy plenty of times.
Well, I don't think he's that polarizing compared to, there's definitely way more polarizing athletes in sports, and I think that he just has the mindset of an ultimate champion, like anyone else you might, like a Derek Jeter or a Kobe Bryant or someone like that. He just has that mindset of he wants to be the best. And I think that London, yes, he did have some success, but for his standards, that wasn't the way he wanted to go out. And I think that left a sour taste in his mouth. You heard him admit that he didn't train the way that he should have in preparation for those London games. So I think that left a sour taste in his mouth. And this time around, he had the mindset of, okay, if this is really going to be my last Olympics, I got to put everything I got into it and just, leave it all out in the pool. And you're seeing that this time around. He's just gone all out, and he can still be great at age 31. He's still one of the best.
You think
in
it's
the game.
his last Olympics? I see him going to one more.
He might. He might have that Jordan complex where he doesn't necessarily know when to say enough is enough. What you see with a lot of great athletes is because they're just so competitive and they have that mindset that they don't want to stop. It's nice to say, "Oh yeah, I went out on top," and he's in a position where he'd be able to do that, which is very nice. But for a lot of guys, that's not how the story ends. And no matter how it ends for him, he's going to be remembered as one of the greatest of all time because of what he's already accomplished.
And I think we have another example coming up in a couple of days. Once track starts, Usain Bolt of Jamaica, he's said multiple times that Rio is going to be his last Olympics because of the success he had in Beijing and then able to keep it in London. But I think it goes back to Beijing. You're set such a high level for yourself with your performance in those games that the pressure kind of got to Phelps in a way in London, and now the pressure is still there, but not as quite as the level as it was 4 years ago in London. So I think that's also played a role.
Yeah, I don't know for Phelps. I don't know if it was much the pressure getting to him. It's just that he maybe got a little complacent with the fact that he had been so successful and he didn't really have anything to prove anymore. And then after he had what he considered the subpar performance in London, now he has something to prove once again. But yeah, for Usain Bolt, it kind of makes sense. And he was at that point where, as a sprinter, you start to lose some of that agility and that quickness that's so crucial in that sport. So we're kind of seeing him at the end of a shelf life of a typical sprinter. So I think it makes sense for him to go out of this after this Olympics. And he's been such a great competitor and such a great performer. It'd be nice to see him go out there one more time and show us something.
Yeah, I don't think it was pressure either. I think it was a lack of pressure in the last Olympics for Phelps. He needs that sense of competition. He needs a rival. He needs to be able to have the beats on the ears, getting all pumped
Yeah,
up.
they tried to build up Ryan Lochte, kind of that in-house competition. That never really panned out. I mean, Lochte, one of the great swimmers in the world, but I mean, he kind of has a reputation of not necessarily rising in some of the bigger moments the way Phelps has. So I don't think that was. I think that was kind of played up more as a rivalry than it actually was a rivalry.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing with Ryan Lochte and with also a Hungarian swimmer. I remember Laszlo Cseh, who performed very well getting on the podium, but because he's swimming in the same generation as Michael Phelps, you just never really could reach that height of winning a gold medal at the World Championships or at an Olympics. And that's the same deal in a lot of sports. Tennis, for example, you have Andy Murray, who's a very good player, but he happens to be playing against Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, three of the greatest players of all time. And that's the issue with a lot of swimmers right now, that as accomplished as they are, Phelps is just on a whole different tier.
Yeah, it's kind of like Phil Mickelson during Tiger's run of dominance. You know, just if Tiger wasn't there, we might be talking about him in a completely different context. The same with some of these other guys that you're mentioning. Without Phelps, they might be winning a lot more gold medals.
Well, of course, swimming's not the only sport. Basketball is a big-time sport that gets a lot of attention. We call them dream teams. I don't know if we should ever call another team the dream team after Jordan, Bird, Magic, that whole
1992. Can you believe it's already been 24 years since those games in Barcelona?
Pretty crazy, man.
Kind of.
Man, I've been. I gotta say though, I've been a little disappointed with the basketball. It's not that fun to watch an NBA All-Star team, which is what this is. This is an NBA All-Star team. Whether or not we have LeBron and Steph, it's not fun to go out and watch them beat up on Nigeria or beat up on China. It's not that entertaining. It's the same reason why a lot of people complain about UConn's women's basketball making women's college basketball less appealing. Is because there's not very much parity, and you pretty much know who's going to win every single time that scenario plays out. And everyone for months has just been talking about the U.S. getting a gold medal like it's an inevitable thing. Melo's going to go win a gold this summer, just like that. And it's sad to say, but it really is just like that, and that's why it's not that entertaining to watch these games. I mean, they just, they're out there goofing off and throwing alley-oops and taking bad shots that you wouldn't see during regular season. What's your idea?
The worst NBA team, worst regular season record combined over the 4 years, every time there is an Olympics.
So the Sixers.
Sixers have to play in the Olympics.
I mean, I like that theory. We could do something like that. They'd have to weed all the foreigners off the team. But yeah, I think you could do something like that, or maybe take like Kentucky basketball or someone, put them out there, send Calipari to the
Kentucky
Olympics.
Basketball.
I could see something like that.
I do not want John Calipari recruiting internationally
What,
for free.
You don't think he would follow all the rules of amateurism with the IOC?
It's going to be like every international player. It's going to end up in Kentucky the next year after the Olympics.
Hey, well, it's a big recruiting tool for Coach K. I think, honestly, that's probably why he does it, because he can go coach the Olympic team and develop a relationship with a LeBron James or a Kevin Durant, who he never got a chance to coach at Duke. But now that he knows all these guys, when he's recruiting someone, those guys are a tool. He can call up Kevin Durant and be like,
LeBron
hey, man.
says he wishes he played for Coach K. If he played 1 year in college, it'd be for Coach K.
Yeah,
and that's news to me, because he's said so many times he's wanted to play at Ohio State though in college. So it's kind of that.
Well, I think he wanted to play at Ohio State for the location, Coach K for the the legacy of playing under Coach K.
Played at Ohio State, bro.
Well, when LeBron James was getting ready to go into college, Ohio State was not at that time was definitely not a school of destination by choice. Now that
he would have played with Greg Oden and Mike Conley.
They wear Buckeyes around.
It would have been a perfect tandem. Yeah, James would have come in and then kind of helped Greg Oden and Mike Conley come.
It would have been a nice little powerhouse.
Greg Oden,
if only for 1 year or 2 years. But I think the way the age difference. I'm pretty sure LeBron and Greg Oden maybe would have been on the same team for 1 year. But one thing I want to know is the fact that these kinds of sports, basketball, where Olympic gold is not the ultimate end-all and be-all in terms of defining success for a career. Soccer, for women's soccer, it's kind of split between that and the World Cup. And then the men's, you do have the U23, so this is kind of their time to shine apart from their professionals. but what are some of the other sports that you think, I know golf is big and tennis is certainly one of these, what do you think of the sports where Olympic gold is not necessarily viewed as a defining moment in a career as opposed to professional championships?
Well, I mean, some of the ones you mentioned, like the tennis and stuff like that, because you'll see these pros come in, and a lot of times you don't even really hear about them. They kind of just come in and do their thing, and they win a gold or don't. I mean, like Serena got knocked out right at the individual tournament already, and you didn't really hear that much about it. Whereas if she got knocked out of like a Wimbledon final or something like that, that's a way bigger story.
Dude, the tennis guys and girls did not care. They got knocked out doubles.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like an
first
afterthought.
day.
I mean, win or lose, you don't really hear too much about them
You
either way.
cannot
'cause
tell
it's
me
not-
they tried, because Serena won Wimbledon, turned right back a few hours later and won doubles in Wimbledon. But she goes to Rio and can't beat the first
I mean,
round.
I don't know if it's that they're not trying as much as it's just they're
They
kind of
wanted
hitting.
out of there.
They're hitting like the wall at that point in their season. They've been playing nonstop for most of the year, and
Djokovic did the same
they get
thing.
to the Olympics, and it's how much do they really have left in the tank? Or,
Yeah, they're losing.
They don't
out
have
to
they don't have a
18 seed.
massive paycheck on the line. It's a little bit different motivation.
They still have the U.S. Open coming up in a couple weeks, so they want to save their energy for that. But that's one reason I enjoy watching some of the other sports, watching swimming, watching track, watching water polo, because how often in the United States do we get to see water polo on a regular basis?
God.
Only 4 years.
Yeah,
We don't get enough
there's a
water
reason
polo
why.
here.
There's a reason why you only see some of these sports every
Yeah.
4 years.
I think we'll do without.
I like water polo. Water
Yeah.
polo is a fun sport to follow. Handball is a lot of fun to follow.
I like hearing Doc Emmerich announce
Did you
water
just say
polo.
handball is fun to follow?
Have you never seen a handball game?
I've seen handball
tried-
games.
I
I've
tried to
seen
watch,
playgrounds also. Nobody is staying home on a Saturday night for a handball.
I tried to watch Germany Poland the other day at the gym, which wasn't doing it for me.
It wasn't.
It was.
I feel like I could
It's,
do
I mean,
it.
It's very big in other parts of the world, but yeah, I mean, just watching it, there's not that much going on for me.
Not that much skill
Not
to
much
run
in,
and throw the ball.
It's not doing it for me. I respect. I mean, they're obviously great athletes. Anyone in these games
You do
are
not
great
respect
athletes.
handball.
I respect the athletes that play it because they're talented at what they do. And let's be honest. However it looks out there, you step out onto a handball court
Looks like
against a 6'5"
garbage.
German dude who can put a shoulder into you. You're not gonna have a fun time out
It's
there.
the same thing that you'd play on a damn playground or a city block.
Yeah,
somewhere.
it is. I agree with that. But
I mean, you could
you're
say that
taking
about
you're taking it to the
basketball,
elite
but-
level. You're talking about the guys who played it on that playground level and stuck with it for years and years and years, and that's all they do, and they hone their craft to the point where they're as talented at that sport relative to an NBA player is at basketball. It just the degree of difficulty when you're watching it on TV might not look the same because it is more of a simplistic sport and it's not as popularized as like a basketball is. But I respect the athletes who compete in it because it's challenging.
The
They're
ultimate
great at what
sign
they
of
do.
respect would you stay home Saturday night, 8 o'clock, miss a hot day to see.
No, absolutely not. I don't care about it that way, but I respect the athletes competing in it. I mean, a lot of these sports I don't watch and I'm not necessarily a fan of, but I respect the dedication that these athletes put into it to be great at it because it's something that takes a true dedication and the true love for it. And whether or not you're a fan of the sport, you have to respect that.
Would you skip going to Chuck E. Cheese on a Saturday night to watch handball?
Absolutely. Why would I'm not sure why I would want to go to a Chuck E. Cheese at this point in my.
Hey man, don't
personal
knock Chuck E.
life.
Cheese.
And I just saw your
great place.
passcode on your phone, too.
Great place for first dates, Chuck
Oh,
E. Cheese.
great.
If you ever see Matt's phone when you're in high school sports, you see Matt, and then he just leaves his phone laying around. It's just an M.
It's basically
draw an
nothing.
M.
It's nothing important. But yeah, the other thing I was going to mention is a couple of days ago, IOC releasing the sports that will be brought back into the Tokyo Games in 2020, and among them, baseball, softball, surfing, skateboarding is going to be an Olympic sport. Karate is also being added to the Olympic program, so you have karate, judo, and taekwondo, the three major martial arts.
When are we gonna get mixed martial arts? That's what I want to
That
know.
would be awesome.
I like what they have with judo and taekwondo, karate. I think that's cool because they're very unique disciplines that not a lot of people get to see, and I think that's a case where it's a rare Olympic sport that people might watch and be like, oh, well, that's interesting. I would like to see them take it a step further and bring in the full mixed martial arts. We have boxing, we have taekwondo, we have these combat sports, and this MMA is kind of like the ultimate combination of all these disciplines into one. I
So
think it'd
you
be
want
really
the
cool to
UFC
see.
in the
See, like,
Olympics?
imagine a Conor McGregor competing for Ireland. against, Anderson Silva from Brazil. I know they're not the same weight classes, but just having guys from all different countries representing their country in a tournament.
My first thought is, imagine any of them passing a damn drug test. Brock Lesnar would set the Olympic piss cup on fire.
Well, it's a problem, but you know what? The UFC's, and it's not the UFC, it's the USADA, the U.S. Anti-Doping Institution. Their testing policies are much stricter than the World Anti-Doping Association. So anything that you're finding as far as positive tests for these guys in the UFC, you would find fewer of them if it was for the Olympic level because the level of testing isn't as high. So the reason you're seeing so many more positive tests at the UFC is because the testing is that much stricter. So I think it would be cleaner than other Olympic sports might be.
I think you'd have a hard time. That's the ultimate disappointment of the Olympics is the 2 weeks after, when all of a sudden you're reading on the bottom line, such and such test positive at Rio Olympics, such and such test positive.
Yeah, and it goes back to that competitive mindset that guys have. They know that their opponent is training at the highest level. They're doing everything possible as far as nutrition and working out. They're working with a trainer. They're doing everything possible to be in the best shape when that moment comes. And you're doing that too. So sometimes, you're talking about guys who are so close, that top 1% of performance in a sport, and sometimes they feel that the only way to get that extra edge is to take some kind of supplement that's going to, not necessarily, everyone thinks about, you hear about PEDs, everyone thinks about anabolic steroids, but it's often not, because it's often not what you need in a specific sport. Like soccer, it might not be steroids, but it might be the EPO that actually makes you better because it increases your endurance rather than your muscle size, which isn't as important in soccer. So you'll see guys take these things because it does give them that extra boost that it's so hard to find when you're at that top 1% of performance.
Did you guys check out the women's gymnastics team at all? They won gold, actually crushed.
They did. They were predicted to win by 6 or 7 points, which is already a fairly sizable margin in itself. They ended up winning by 8 points, and it was just fantastic to see them perform. I know Allie Raisman and Gabby Douglas.
Is she?
She is.
Allie Raisman, yep.
Yep.
She's homegrown for me.
And then Gabby Douglas, who trains in Columbus, Ohio, my hometown. Simone Biles, who was born in Columbus, Ohio, my hometown. It was great to see my Columbus represented with several gold medals. And they have a chance for several more coming up in the next few days. I know Abby Johnston, who went to high school, the same high school as I did, only a year older than me. She's going to be competing in diving. She was a silver medalist in London. So chance to make it 2 medals in back-to-back Olympics.
And we were talking about short shelf lives with the sprinters and Usain Bolt. The gymnastics shelf life is, you're talking about 15 to 21 years old at max. After that, they're considered washed up, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
But that's what's so impressive about our women's gymnastics team is they have to do so much turnover Olympics to Olympics. We're only seeing a couple holdovers from last time around, and they're still going out and they're dominating. It really just speaks to the strength of the program and the training that they all go through.
Did you see the guy break his leg on the pommel horse?
I wish I didn't.
Oh,
it was
I did not
nasty,
see
man.
that.
You don't want to see it. Trust me.
I'll take your word for it.
The man, I can't remember his
my
name.
gosh.
The man from France.
Yeah.
He just went right over the pommel horse and
brutal.
was just right on the landing. And then it makes it worse. Apparently, carrying him out, they dropped the gurney that he was on.
Oh, one of those.
So it's just not a good day for that guy.
Oh man.
But some of the unfortunate things that you'll see throughout the Olympics, and that was one of them right there.
They dropped him.
Poor guy.
All right, on that note, let's take a break here. When we come back, we'll talk about the late John Saunders just passing away yesterday, and we'll hit up some college football. All right, you're listening to The Change Up on WVSSAC Sports. Welcome into the Change Up on WVSSAC Sports here with Matt Digby and Tom Bill. Thanks for joining us. You can check us out at WVSSAC Sports on Facebook and Twitter. Why don't you give your music hook up there. Shout out.
Yep. Shout out to my man, John Canada. If you like the beats that you're hearing on this podcast, it's John Canada with Gritty City Records. They're out of Richmond, Virginia. He's got a SoundCloud page just like we do. So check him out, John Canada, on SoundCloud.com. And also check out the Change Up podcast on SoundCloud.com. So for those of you who can't watch this video version, you don't have time to sit down and watch the video all the way through, you can download it from SoundCloud, put it in your car, listen to it as you're driving around, and get caught up with the latest in West Virginia sports.
So, boys, we're seeing the end of an era here. A-Rod is set to, he's not retiring, he's stepping down. What's the official terminology
He's
they're
going
saying?
to be a special advisor for the Yankees, which I understand means he'll be involved with some of their younger prospects coming up, which they now have a lot of after their trade deadline moves. They actually have one of the best farm systems in baseball now, whereas before they were kind of middle of the pack. So I guess he'll be involved with developing some of those younger guys. But from what it sounds like, I don't know if he's necessarily done. I don't know if you guys caught Wednesday Night Baseball on ESPN last night, but he had an interview with Rick Sutcliffe that they aired during the game, and he asked him, are you done? Friday, is this it for you? Meaning the end of this current series with the Red Sox, and because that's what everyone thought. But he didn't answer it directly. He kind of wishy-washed around that answer. So if it's not, I think he's done with the Yankees. I think the Yankees were going to release him, and they had a conversation about, how to do this in a more graceful way, more dignified way for a player of A-Rod's stature. So this is how they're going to handle it. But I mean, there are probably other teams out there that could use him as a DH for the stretch
I
run.
don't think they're doing it as dignified. I think they're afraid. First, A-Rod's not going anywhere without his money. I think they had to find a way to get him paid without releasing him and the money they owe.
Yeah, and
I don't think they care about the dignified part with A-Rod.
Well, I think A-Rod, in that sense, kind of dug himself in the hole with the whole steroids controversy from several years ago.
Of course, yeah.
Well, he also tried to sue his employer, who he's now retiring from. So I mean, they were going to straight up release him, and this this spin on it just looks a little better because you can give his teary-eyed retirement speech, whether it's
the roster
whether it's
opens
canned
up
or
in
not.
September, so they got extra space for extra players. Develop young players.
This is just, it's just part of the Yankees' transition right now. They're clearly transitioning from where they've been the last 20 or so years of win now at all costs and go out and sign whoever to do it to, all right, we really need to step back and build this program organically at the minor league level with prospects. And you've seen it. Teixeira is now retiring at the end of the season. Yep. You're seeing that old guard kind of flip over. And I've been telling Yankees fans this for years because the Red Sox started this process about 4 years ago after Terry Francona and Theo Epstein left. They kind of realized they had to jump into a rebuild mode. They were fortunate to get that one breakthrough year. It's kind of a blip on the radar in 2013 when they won the World Series. But they launched into this rebuild a few years ago while the Yankees still tried to push ahead with some of those aging players that they had on big contracts. And it didn't pan out for them because they didn't have the talent to get over the top and really compete for anything serious, whereas the Red Sox, bottomed out for a few years, and now they're back in the midst of a playoff run with a very talented farm system, and the Yankees are just now beginning that process, so they have a few years to go.
So I have a theory. Tim Tebow's trying to get in baseball. A-Rod's very popular in South Miami. Both of them signed with Miami.
Well,
Miami's in the playoffs as of right now. Wild card.
I could see A-Rod going there, except for the fact that he would have to play the field. He can't play the field anymore at his age. I mean, he was exclusively a DH for the Yankees this year. He can't move around like he could in the old days. Tim Tebow, he's 28 years old. He can probably still move around pretty well. He's in great shape. But this guy hasn't played competitive baseball since 2005.
High school.
I mean, you saw him, high school baseball we're talking about.
Yeah.
And, you saw him in the cages. Looks like he has a decent swing. You saw some of these major league guys like Gary Sheffield come out on Twitter and say that, he's hitting the ball well. I've been told that some of those guys, maybe not Gary Sheffield necessarily, but some guys were offered compensation to say nice things about Tim Tebow as a baseball player.
I'm sure they were.
But, if he's ever going to make the major leagues, it's not going to happen anytime soon. He's going to have to go through the grind of a minor league baseball like we saw Michael Jordan try to do during his hiatus. But I'd be shocked to see Tim Tebow get past low A ball. I mean, just at the age of 28, hasn't played baseball in so long. If anyone can do it, maybe it's him just because of the mindset he has. I mean, he truly believes that he can do anything he puts his mind to. So if anyone can do it, probably Tim Tebow. But I mean, it's hard. Baseball is a hard sport that guys spend their whole lives preparing and training for. And to just think that you can come in after you haven't played in over a decade and just make the majors.
Johnny Manziel used to play baseball. Put him on Miami too. That is a party waiting to happen right there.
I think it would work better for his lifestyle.
Tebow, A-Rod,
I
and
think
Johnny
it would,
Manziel.
yeah.
I think baseball is much more conducive to Johnny Manziel's lifestyle than playing on a football team is.
TMZ in Miami.
Well, and the other thing I would also recommend for both those guys is if they were to get picked up by either the Rays organization or the Blue Jays organization, if they have to start at the rookie level, that means they're going to be right here in Princeton and Bluefield. Can you imagine that, the scenario, if they were ever play at Honeycutt or Bowling Field?
I would enjoy getting to cover some of that just for the chaos of it all.
Covering Tebow and Manziel on the same team.
Hey, I mean that'd be one of the
That would
toughest.
be fun.
One of the toughest baseball teams you've seen in a
It's
while.
like God versus Satan.
Hey, maybe they'll balance each other out. Tim Tebow played on that group of criminals at University of Florida, and he was the
Including
the one bright spot on that team.
one former New England Patriot, if I'm not mistaken.
Aaron Hernandez, who he actually helped, and Tim Tebow helped him in a barroom incident back when they were both at University of Florida. Hernandez could have gotten a lot of trouble, except for Tim Tebow came to his aid that time. So
Do you think he shined when he walked in the room?
he may have, and if anyone's going to reform Johnny Manziel at this point, Tim Tebow may be the guy to do it.
This
is what we're talking about right now. Tim Tebow, Johnny Manziel, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on your Bluefield Blue Jays. I think that's what we're looking at. Let's make it happen, folks.
That'd be awesome. Ticket seller. Would you go?
I would definitely go. I mean,
you'd go.
I would love to see those.
Oh, we
three
do
on
live
TV.
shows from Bowen Field.
Oh, we're definitely doing live shows from Bowen Field.
You're the same guy who tried to talk me into handball being a popular sport earlier, so.
Hey, handball, you got to respect all the Olympic sports as much as you can.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do. Well, if there's one exception, it will be
Synchronized swimming, man.
Yeah, if there's one exception, there will be synchronized swimming and trampoline. Having trampoline be
dressage. I mean, they got some
And
crazy.
dressage,
They got
yeah.
some crazy sports in the Olympics,
Trampoline.
man. I don't even know what half of these are.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you never heard of this, several years ago they introduced just trampoline, just jumping up and down. That's one sport.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I'm not a
Who can do
big
the
fan of
most
that.
flips off a
And like
trampoline?
you're saying, Tom, dressage, where you're just going around on a horse doing different steps. I mean, the agility of the horses, having them jump over the gates, and of course, if they were to introduce horse racing,
Hey,
like you
let's
see
add the
with the
dog
Triple
show.
Crown.
Dog show at the
The
Olympics.
Westminster Dog
Yeah.
Show.
Might as well.
What did you just ramble off? Something about agility of horses?
Horses have a lot of strength themselves, and I'm sure the jockeys who control them. I mean, you see every year with the Triple Crown races, Kentucky Derby, Preakness, the Belmont. I mean, yeah, we don't pay a lot of attention as a country.
That a horse doesn't have strength. My God, they plow fields. I know a horse has strength. The jockeys don't have that much strength.
Jockeys are about 4 foot.
They are
in
true,
most
yeah.
cases.
But yeah, the other so a lot of good discussion going on, but the other discussion on the more
That
somber
wasn't
note.
good discussion. You just told me about a damn horse and a jockey having strength. What was good about that? Did
Well-
you learn anything just now?
I learned that we got some sports we got to take a serious look at in the Olympics. But on a serious note, Matt does have something important to talk about. In the
Yeah,
sports
so
world.
like I mentioned earlier in the program, it's kind of a very sad week for sportscasters, the passing of John Saunders at the age of 61, and especially for someone like me who grew up watching college football every single Saturday. Saunders was one of the voices of college football on ABC. You had Brent Musburger and Keith Jackson as your top two play-by-play guys, but Saunders was the studio host who always introduced you at the start of every week, whether it was Todd Blackledge he worked with, Terry Bowden, Craig James, Aaron Taylor, Doug Flutie was a studio analyst with ABC for 1 year, I remember. And even the current guys, Jesse Palmer, Mark May, Mac Brown, we may not hold them in the same esteem as analysts like we do with Todd Blackledge, and I think also Terry Bowden did a very good job as a commentator. But Saunders was able to navigate through all those unique situations in college football, and not just college football. He also did a great job, I know, hosting the NBA. I remember watching him with his rant after the Pistons-Pacers brawl. How many years ago was that? 12 years ago. I mean,
The sports
He
reporters.
yeah,
on
he did get
Sundays.
he hosted the sports reporters. He did say a lot of things that drew criticism, but when you look at it, they weren't necessarily wrong. It was because they were right that they received so much negative attention at the start, and then only after the fact did we realize that he was spot on with a lot of points he made.
Yeah, I mean, one of the originals at ESPN, he came on in 1986, and I think he's one of the oldest tenured guys there behind Bob Lee and Chris Berman, who have literally been there since day one. So, I mean, you're talking about the faces of ESPN, which has become, in his tenure, gone from being kind of a regional, mid-market, kind of not everyone watches it when he first comes on in 1986 to now, obviously the biggest distributor of sports media in the entire world. And he's been a large part of that, from hosting sports centers to hosting college football to announcing games. He was just, by all accounts from everyone who worked with him, just a really good person, always encouraging others. And, he'll be missed. He's one of the greats.
Yeah, just more of the same. I just kind of get used to watching somebody every Saturday. Even I kind of remember him for college basketball a lot too, working with Dickie V a lot, and it was just somebody you expect to see on TV every day, and then all of a sudden they're gone. Just a tragic time for that ESPN family, and wishing them all the best of luck, guys. I'm really kind of a slow week here. We're getting ready to hit college football. We're going to hit a stride here coming up. You guys been out and about, done some high school previews. Anything out there you see this week that?
Anything? The one thing I've seen is just the waiting. I mean, it was one thing waiting for preseason to start. Now it's waiting for August 26th to come around. We're still just over 2 weeks from August 26th, where we finally get to see week 1 of high school football, and then the week after we get to see FBS football. Though actually Bluefield College will be starting their season as well on Thursday, August 25th. So it'll be great to see college football when they return. I know West Virginia, though, looking to make improvements on their season. Marshall, Virginia Tech, Concord, definitely excited for the first year under new head coach Paul Price.
Yeah,
First look at it, right?
First look at it for me, I'm excited. I've seen a few teams. I want to see a few more here over these next couple days. But I think just the general attitude across all the programs I've seen is everyone's excited to just get back to it. I mean, it's a game that people in this region really, really love, and I think everyone's committed to improving their situation from last year, and everyone's got that early season sense of optimism that we can do better than we did last year, and they're dedicated to it, which is always nice to see this time of year. Obviously, it doesn't always pan out the way everyone hopes, but it's good to see the spirits are high across the board, and then everyone's just excited to get back to playing.
I have a $100 bet that with our director Mike that the Patriots miss the playoffs. By the way, did I tell you this?
I think you just hate money. I don't see any other way to slice it than you just don't like money. And good for Mike for making that bet. It's a smart one on his part.
Yeah, but preseason actually starts tonight. Week 1 of preseason. Saints are at the Patriots.
That's tonight.
That
That's
is
tonight,
yeah.
man.
On Thursday, good old August 11th, the return of NFL preseason football. And Saints are at the Patriots. Saints right now visiting New England for a couple practices before that game. Then they're back at the Greenbrier for, I think, 4 or 5 more practices. And then
So they're in New England?
they are in New England right now.
Jimmy
Yep.
Garoppolo is starting tonight. No Tom Brady.
And then they come
I
back.
think they'll measure the balls.
They measure the balls.
that's a good
they
question.
always measure the balls, man. They measured them on that night too. That night against the Colts. They always measure the footballs, especially now that we've gone through this witch hunt in this circus over the last year.
Well,
and
in
a
that
half.
case, I would have to ask, who does the measuring? An independent consultant or
the NFL
Patriots?
officials who are supposed to be qualified to do their jobs properly. And as long as everyone understands ideal gas law and we have, proper procedures are carried out, then we shouldn't have any issues.
That's from
Listen,
the organization that decided to use replacement refs with gentlemen who interpreted a clear interception as a game-winning touchdown in the
I
final
think
second.
he just took a shot at you and the NFL.
That's the NFL, man. They decided to use replacement officials.
He's calling out the Tuck rule.
It's one of several. That wasn't replacement official.
That was not replacement officials.
That was
No,
just-
the Tuck rule was a regular NFL
That
official,
was
as
just
I
good
recall.
interpreting of an NFL rule. That was looking at the rule by the book and determining that the arm was still coming forward.
I don't have a problem with
For those of you who remember the
Either.
2001 AFC Championship game between the Oakland Raiders and the Patriots in the snow, kind of launched the legend of the great Tom Brady.
For those of you who just threw up in your mouth a little bit.
Greatest of all time.
Is he?
I think the jury's still out on that. I mean,
Who is? On the spot.
if I had to say right now, Joe Montana.
Joe Montana, who went to 2 fewer Super Bowls than Tom Brady. And Tom Brady has just as many wins.
Joe Montana, who's already in the Football Hall of Fame, though. So
He is.
That doesn't make sense.
So you can't be in
Brady's
the
still
Hall of
playing.
Fame until you're still playing. He's still at age 39
I'm
playing
sure
at
if
an
Tom
MVP
Brady,
level.
I'm sure when Tom Brady gets into the Hall of Fame in however many years, it will probably change. But
he's going
right
for
now,
he's going for
Montana,
number 5 this year.
Speaking of the Hall
That's
of
the worst damn argument.
Well,
you are not on your game today.
I'm not on my game today.
You
It's
need
probably
to
the early
step-
morning stuff.
the early
Speaking
morning
of the
stuff.
Hall of Fame, induction ceremony was this past
We
weekend.
should talk about this.
8 guys getting inducted. Second year this has happened with 8 guys, second straight year. Do you think they should put a cap on how many guys are admitted just to kind of enhance the exclusivity of it?
No, I think they should just look at it a little more selectively. You know, I mean, you can't go back and throw old guys out, but I think some years you're going to have 8 guys who really deserve to get in. Other years you're going to have, you know, maybe 1 or 2 guys. And I honestly think that some years you probably just shouldn't have anyone, and then some guys maybe slip through the cracks because voters feel like they need to put some guys through. But I just think that you just need to look at it on a year-to-year basis, and you're just going to have years like this. So, I mean, for the most part, the guys, I don't really know much about the owner, who was the 49ers owner.
Yeah,
who
he
got
was
inducted.
the owner during the glory heydays of Joe Montana, Steve Young,
Right,
when
so-
they were part of
Bartolo.
that.
So I can't really speak to his credentials as far as being a Hall of Famer, but I mean, it's Marvin Harrison, Brett Favre. You're talking about
Tony Dungy.
Tony Dungy. Yeah, I guess you call him a Hall of Fame coach. I might have a little issue with that one. I mean, but for the most part, I mean, these are some of the greats that have ever done it.
Yeah, Ken Stabler, who was also inducted, he's one of those guys that you think to yourself, a guy like Stabler, shouldn't he already be in the Hall of Fame? And it took him until
It
2016.
took him a while, yeah, but he was a great player in his day. So I don't have a problem with 8 guys getting in, as long as it's not like one or two like really legit guys and like 7 borderline guys who are
Yeah.
getting in the same year.
I mean, you go have the same thing if you think about like Big Ben's class. You got Eli, Ben,
Phillip Rivers.
Phillip Rivers.
Well, Phillip Rivers, I mean, the way he's been the past couple of years, unless he's able to finally get that Super Bowl, I don't know if Rivers.
Well,
see all
he's
these
been
guys
playing good
come up.
football. Phillip Rivers is playing well. He's been a bit unlucky. You know, he had Keenan Allen go down for the year last year. They just haven't really had the defense around him. I think that he's been a little bit of a victim of circumstance, and I think that in the right situation with a really good team built around him, he could probably break through and get his first ring. I think he's a very talented quarterback. Whether or not he's a Hall of Famer, I don't know about that. But I think that given the right circumstances, you could see him go out there and win a ring. We've certainly seen lesser quarterbacks win Super Bowl rings.
Yeah, he's on the edge now. I don't see a ring in his future. I just don't see the Chargers getting there in time.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot, for sure.
All right, guys. Well, if you like what you've been listening to, make sure you share it with your friends. I think that'll do it for us this week. And make sure you join us again next week for the Change Up on WRY Sports. You can check us out on Facebook and Twitter at WRY Sports. What's our sound?
It's
SoundCloud.
There you go.
I don't know, we called it
SoundCloud.
last time SoundHound or something like that.
SoundHound?
SoundCloud.com.
Channeling your
Change
inner-
Up Podcast. That's what you want to look for. We have the first 3 episodes up. Episode 4 will be up soon, and this episode soon after that.
Yeah, and then we'll start hitting up some football here soon.
Absolutely.
So for Matt and Tom, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.